Whenever I go into schools or universities and talk about careers, it never ceases to surprise me how interested those young people are in wanting to think about and develop their understanding of what their future actually is.
When you are asked or invited to do something in schools, you'll probably find that career sessions come high up the list, and these are really important sessions to be part of. The nature of career sessions are that they could be in a different range of formats. You could be asked to go to a careers fair, in which case you may be one of several employers. It could be that you do a whole class session where there are several groups together. You might end up doing an assembly. The thing to remember is it's really important to know in advance exactly what the session's going to be, how long it's going to be for, the age of the audience and the size of the audience, and then you can prepare properly.
When I run career sessions, it really does depend on the age group of the people, and I think I would pitch something very differently to a kind of group of 9 and 10-year-olds as I perhaps would talking about my career to a group of 16-year-olds.
Students will really be keen to understand what you do as a professional. The insight that you can bring into the experiences you've had, plus the sort of routes that you've taken to get into the profession, are always really exciting for students to hear about.
So if it's a career session where you're going to give how you got to your career, it's really, you're just telling them about the path that you took, what did you study at school, how you found out about why did you pick the subjects you did, why did you pick what you did at university and how that developed into a career. But just the idea that, getting involved in sort of science and technology subjects does equate to actual real jobs, and they could see that there's real jobs. So you're trying to encourage that and show that side of the pathway of how they can get to there.
So I told them how I got into the technology industry via my college and how now as an apprentice at Cisco. And it just gave them exposure to what they could do in their careers almost. And by the end of the session, they were really engaged. They wanted to know more information and they really wanted to make an impact in the tech industry.
If you ask a student to describe someone who works in the IT industry before one of your career sessions, they'll probably say something very stereotypical about it being male, sitting in a darkened room in front of a computer. And one of your assignments really in doing your career session would be to debunk that myth.
So I think the biggest myth is that technology and engineering type jobs and careers are not for girls. So I think I totally dispel that myth, given that I'm an engineer and I'm female. So I think that's probably one of the biggest myths. And also that the other myth is around that a technology career is about coding or programming. And actually it's not. It can be a whole range of different areas that you can go into. From the design, data analysis, which is more and more need now for data analytics, which does form part of a technology or engineering type role, as well as the hands-on activities.
So it's quite lively projects that we work on. We don't just mainly 24/7 sit behind the computer, so we have to go and meet clients, take the requirements, talk to them. So it's very interactive.
I think it's very important that the students understand that there's not just the one route. For example, there's career paths in apprenticeships where these students have exposure to different business areas and then progress.
It is not necessarily the degree graduate find a job route, that there's other ways of getting in there, that you could go through apprenticeships, you could go through degree apprenticeships, you can go into the industry at 18, you can go in of course with a degree, and you can go in with a range of degrees. It's not necessarily computer science or IT degrees that let you into the industry.
One of the questions you always get asked is how much money you earn. And for many youngsters, there is a real aha moment when they actually find out that you can earn very nice salary in our industry, much more so than some of the other industries that they might be thinking about.
You don't want to be talking at students without them having some chance to interact with you. Actually getting them to talk about things, getting them to ask you questions, setting them maybe a few questions of your own, letting small groups of students actually chat between themselves about the things that you're posing could actually be a really good way of making this session much more fun. So don't think that you've got to go into these sessions and just talk at them for a long period of time. That could actually be the worst thing you can do.
Recently I did a careers talk to 9 and 10-year-olds and they were absolutely fascinated by kind of what the biggest disasters might have been and how I'd kind of recovered from those, as opposed to wanting to know kind of the nuts and bolts of how my role and how I've got into my role. So I think it's just the unexpectedness of some of the questions as well have certainly been standout and quite enjoyable.
Genuinely be yourself and be, excited about what you're trying to tell them about. Also, be honest about how you got to where you got. What do you enjoy about your job? What you potentially is not so enjoyable about the job, because it's important for them to see the whole picture.